investigation. Do with Ben's involvement in the weather program and Channel 2.
What's really funny is just watching my weather reports on TV.
Finally tonight, if you've got a lot of big bucks just lying around the house, and who doesn't, and you don't mind some used goods, you could own a piece of history. The big auction house in New York today released a catalog of the estate of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Pre-auction estimates for the collection range from $4 to $5 million. But if something owned by Jackie O is not your style, how about jewelry owned by the late Eva Gabor? Her jewelry collection was auctioned in Beverly Hills tonight. It could have been yours for a cool $500,000. And here's a man who has a good weather collection, Matt Zaffino.
Was she the one that was on Green Acres?
Green Acres, she was the one,
Green Acres,
yeah.
Right, with the pig and Arnold.
Arnold.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It always comes back, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Let's check the forecast for tomorrow morning. Mostly cloudy in the early morning hours and then partly cloudy. So we'll get some sun tomorrow up to about 55, but lots of sun starting Wednesday. Nothing but clear blue skies right on through into the weekend. About 67 on Thursday. That'll be our warmest temperature of the year. We may get a 70 somewhere in the valley this week.
That'd be something. Hey, that's our news. Have a great one, everyone, from all of us here at 2. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching Channel 2 News, the Northwest News Leader. Tomorrow morning, join Dan Christopher and Janice Weibel for Channel 2 News This Morning.
March 11th, 1996.
The Whitewater controversy. Accusations made and denied.
Mrs. Clinton essentially took single-handedly the control of this investment.
We saw no records, we saw no documents.
New questions about the Clintons' credibility.
I think the death of Vincent Foster is the pivotal event in this story.
There were no documents taken out of Vince Foster's office on the night he died.
An allegation comes up and we answer it, and then people say, well, here's another allegation, answer this.
The president practically screamed over the phone. He said, I can't take this anymore. I'm here in Europe and they're asking me about Whitewater.
Now the picture may become a little clearer. Tonight, new details about Whitewater, Vince Foster, and damage control.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
This program may be the first you've heard about Bloodsport, a new book which becomes available later this week, but it will not be the last. To begin with, you need to know how and why the book came about. The idea appears to have originated with Hillary Clinton. In any event, it was her close friend Susan Thomas's, herself a lawyer, who approached the author, Jim Stewart, and suggested that those closest to the First Family, and indeed the President and the First Lady themselves, would be willing to cooperate with an objective, outside the Beltway writer on a detailed, no-holds-barred Whitewater book. Stewart, a lawyer and former page one editor of the Wall Street Journal, had impeccable credentials. He had shared in a 1988 Pulitzer Prize for his reporting on insider trading. In 1991, he published the book Den of Thieves about financial fraud in the 1980s. Stewart took up the offer and even had one lengthy meeting with Mrs. Clinton at the White House, but the promised cooperation never materialized, although a number of people close to the Clintons did ultimately talk. Stewart went ahead and wrote the book anyway. Jim Stewart is a meticulous writer, which is another way of saying that there are few blaring headlines, but dozens of troubling revelations. To understand what Jim Stewart has done, you need to refresh your memory on what the Clintons have variously claimed and insisted. The Clintons have insisted, for example, that they were only passive investors in Whitewater and had virtually nothing to do with it themselves.
We gave whatever money we were requested to give by Jim McDougal. I mean, he was the one who would say, here's what you owe on interest, here's what your contribution should be. We did whatever he asked us. We saw no records, we saw no documents.
The Clintons insist that they have fully cooperated with the investigation of Whitewater, but that they have been dogged by one unproved allegation after another.
That's really the story of this for the last 4 years. An allegation comes up and we answer it, and then people say, well, here's another allegation, answer this. And then here's another allegation, answer this. That is the way we are we're living here in Washington today.
And only a couple of weeks ago, after the FDIC released a report prepared by Jay Stevens, a former Republican U.S. attorney, not known to be friendly toward the Clintons, there was this.
This report blows out of the water the allegations that have been made about the First Lady and the Rose Law Firm, and it undermines the contention of those who would extend these Whitewater hearings endlessly on into the future.
That may be as good a place as any to introduce Jim Stewart, the author of Bloodsport, in his first television interview on the book. And let me have you respond right away, because the White House is obviously very proud of the fact that Jay Stevens, Republican, no friend of the Clintons, supervised a report by the FDIC, which in effect, according to the White House, found the Clintons blameless in the Whitewater affair. Is that an overstatement?
Well, I think the White House reaction is misplaced optimism. The report is good news as far as it goes, but it doesn't go very far. It explicitly says that it's not the definitive report on many of the questions that have arisen here. And there is still an independent counsel investigating all of these and even more allegations. As long as the independent counsel investigation continues, a real threat hovers over this presidency.
Why or how do you explain the fact that Jay Stevens, who, as I say, has no particular love for the Clintons, why would he end an investigation if, as you say, it's incomplete?
He was retained to investigate the narrow question of whether the government should sue the Clintons or others to regain losses from Madison Guarantee. And he concluded there was no evidence to warrant a suit against the Clintons or the Rose Law Firm to do that. I think that's the right conclusion. I do not conclude that Madison Guarantee losses flowed to the Clintons.
What then do you conclude that, I mean, try and give it to me in a broad sense. What is it that you would say if you were obliged in 15 or 30 seconds to summarize what is troublesome about Whitewater and what will still come back to haunt the Clintons?
Well, I think the Whitewater investment and the story of that is important because it shows many things about the Clintons. It shows their willingness to hold themselves to the standards that everyone else has to meet. It shows their willingness to abide by financial requirements in obtaining mortgage loans. I think most of all, it shows their willingness while in Arkansas to accept the favors of people who were regulated by the state. Their attitude to this, which bordered on the negligent in the beginning, clearly indicated a mindset which said somebody else will take care of us because of our power as highly elected officials in the state of Arkansas.
In a sense, Jim, that's a negative way of saying the same thing we heard Mrs. Clinton say at the beginning of this broadcast. In other words, let somebody else take care of this. She put in a more positive sense, i.e., we had nothing to do with this. If Jim McDougal came and said, you owe so and so much in interest, we paid it, but we never saw documents, we never had an active role in this Whitewater affair, to which you would say what?
Well, that simply isn't true. I think it may have been true in the very beginning of the investment, when there were still high hopes that this would make money and the McDougals could handle everything. But by 1986, when the McDougal empire was crumbling, it was not true. At that point, Mrs. Clinton essentially took single-handedly the control of this investment. She was the one who negotiated the loan renewals with the bank that held the mortgage. She was the one who handled all the correspondence. She was the one who went over all the numbers. She had possession of all the records.
It is your contention that she vastly inflated the value of the Clintons' interest in Whitewater.
That's correct.
Correct?
As I'm sure anybody who has ever applied for a mortgage knows, you have to disclose your assets in such a financial disclosure statement. And there are warnings on these forms to be honest about this, to be accurate, to be careful, not to use uncertain judgments, because to inflate that can be a federal crime. And yet, Mrs. Clinton valued Whitewater at $100,000 on a 1987 financial disclosure document right after the bank itself had visited the property and concluded the most generous estimate for their half interest would be $52,000.
So when you're talking about $100,000 valuation, you're not talking about the value of the whole property, but the Clintons' half interest.
They valued their half interest at $100,000.
I ask you this question advisedly, reminding our viewers that you have some experience as a lawyer. Is that a crime?
It is a crime to submit a false financial document. In fact, their partners, the McDougals, are on trial in Little Rock this week for having submitted false financial documents to financial institutions. But to prove a case like that, a prosecutor would have to prove that it was knowingly a false submission. We haven't heard an explanation from either Mrs. Clinton or the President about that document. And that ultimately would be a question for a prosecutor and a jury to decide.
I bring you back, Jim, to what we heard the President say just a few moments ago, again at the top of this broadcast. Sort of this cry of, what in heaven's name are we supposed to do? Somebody makes an allegation, we respond to the allegation. Somebody makes a new allegation, we respond to that allegation. This sounds like another one of those allegations. How do you respond to what the President is saying?
Well, I don't think these allegations would be coming out, or the revelations, in this kind of slow drip-by-drip process, if the White House and the Clintons had been forthright from the beginning when this first surfaced in the campaign. Get the story out. They came to me, or they sent someone to me, allegedly because they wanted to get the whole story out. And they had been advised at the time, and I told them the same thing, that to stop these inquiries, get in front of the story, tell us what happened, and don't leave holes in the story. Be complete. Err on the side of completeness, and if people are bored, they can ignore it. But that has never been the strategy they have employed.
Let's take a short break, Jim. When we come back, we will talk about what Vince Foster knew about Whitewater and a number of other subjects.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Sears.
Surprisingly, your washing machine can have more to do with getting your laundry clean than your detergent. And one laundry system is proven to perform better than any other. Kenmore. Designed with an exclusive agitator system that ensures that whatever you're washing gets circulated throughout, as if it were in there alone. Working so quietly, you might forget it's there. Shouldn't you consider the brand that's already at work in over 1 out of 2 homes in America? Kenmore. Come see the innovative side of Sears.
It is where the lofty atmosphere of most luxury cars is left behind. It is the American-built flagship of Toyota, Avalon. Combining refined performance, comfort, and Toyota's unparalleled reputation for quality, Avalon delivers the greatest luxury of all, peace of mind. Avalon, experience the tranquility.
It's true. Some churches are refusing to perform weddings. What does it take to tie the knot? Watch and you'll understand on ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Paul Hogan's on a test drive right now, so he asked me to tell you about Subaru all-wheel drive days, where you can get, how would Paul say it, a ripper deal on any 96 all-wheel drive Subaru, like the Legacy sedan, the Impreza Coupe, or the amazing Outback. Something you'd like to add, Paul?
Check out the full line of all-wheel drive cars from Subaru, including my Outback.
Subaru all-wheel drive days end March 31st. Right, Paul? Paul? Anybody seen Paul?
Many successful businesses get their start at a kitchen table, and LaserQuick is there to help along the way by providing service and expertise to help a business grow, with printing, copying, and computer graphics for all your important projects. At LaserQuick, you'll always find competitive prices, helpful service, and convenient locations, so you can concentrate on making your business fly. Given the right printer, anything's possible. LaserQuick.
And back once again with Jim Stewart. You begin with the suicide of Vince Foster and clearly believe that his suicide is pivotal to understanding everything that's happened to the Clintons in subsequent months and years. Have you reached any conclusion as to why he committed suicide?
Well, first of all, there was the things he enumerated in the note that he wrote, and I think foremost among those was probably his concern about the handling of the firing of employees in the travel office. But what I think I can contribute that's new is that there were things bothering him that were so serious he didn't dare write them in his note. He didn't confide them to his wife. He was worried about his marriage. He was very much enmeshed in what we now know as Whitewater, and he knew of things that hadn't come to light that could prove embarrassing. He was concerned about the deterioration of his relationship with the First Lady, and I think there's a good chance he knew of the problems that Webb Hubbell was about to face given his handling of clients in the Rose firm.
When you talk about Webb Hubbell, I should point out, first of all, Vince Foster, Hillary Clinton, Webb Hubbell had all been partners at the Rose law firm together. Webb Hubbell then came with the Clintons to Washington, was briefly the Assistant Attorney General of the United States. And you write that in the months before Vince Foster committed suicide,
yes,
that he went over to Webb Hubbell's house and went down in the basement to look at what?
Well, there were files in Webb Hubbell's basement that had been removed from the Rose law firm during the campaign by Webb Hubbell and Vince Foster. Webb and Vince, during the campaign, went through the Rose firm and removed anything that they thought might be controversial or create problems for the campaign. And this included many of the billing records relating to Hillary Clinton's work for Madison Guarantee and other matters. And one day, Vince Foster went over, and he and Webb Hubbell got into the basement. They went through the boxes, and they went through those materials looking for these particular files, which they did get and turn over to the First Lady. But also in those files were all of this other material, including a lot of the Whitewater material, bank records from Whitewater, and the billing records, as I mentioned before.
Is it your impression that Vince Foster then took those billing records to the White House, to his office?
It's certainly a possibility. I don't know for sure, and nobody said they recalled him taking documents out of the basement, but those documents in the basement were later all turned over to the Williams and Connolly firm after they learned that Webb Hubbell had all these documents, and they supposedly turned all those documents over to Congress. So these records did not surface there. So that suggests to me that somehow between their first being removed from the Rose firm till they're being discovered, they were in Vince Foster's office.
Talk to me for a moment about Travelgate, but first of all, let's take a look at something the First Lady said, I believe, in her interview with Barbara Walters about the whole Travelgate affair.
I think that everyone who knew about it was quite concerned and wanted it to be taken care of. But I did not make the decisions. I did not direct anyone to make the decisions. But I have absolutely no doubt that I did express concern because I was concerned about any kind of financial mismanagement.
Mrs. Clinton presents herself in that interview as exercising a sort of passive role. Yes, I may have expressed some concern about, but I certainly didn't initiate. There is a memorandum by David Watkins, I believe. Tell the story of that memorandum, because it, of course, suggests something totally different, but the White House itself ultimately produced that memorandum and made it available. Why is that significant?
Well, the facts as I discovered on the Travel Office affair are as follows. I learned before the production of this memo that, in fact, whatever her own personal belief about this is, Mrs. Clinton was the first person to suggest to David Watkins that these people be replaced.
David Watkins being?
He was the head of management in the White House and was the person in charge of personnel in the White House, including the Travel Office.
Right.
She was the first one to say to him, we need our people in this office. Did she literally say, fire them? No, but the implication seemed very clear to him and to everyone else who spoke with her. And that's what set in motion the chain of events that led to their being fired.
But the memorandum that David Watkins wrote to his own file about all of this and about falling on his sword for the First Lady is a memorandum that the White House itself, after all, made available. Now, that certainly puts them in a good light, doesn't it?
Well, I don't think so. First of all, that memorandum had been under subpoena for a considerable period of time. The independent counsel, the predecessor to Kenneth Starr, had subpoenaed that particular document. Meanwhile, I think the White House was aware that all of this information was soon going to be made public. I have no idea how they found it when they did or why they decided to make it public when they did, but I do know that the week before that, I and my fact checker were checking the details about the First Lady's involvement in the Travel Office affair with the White House press office, with people in the White House, and had even faxed them material that dealt with this very subject. And almost immediately after that, the memo itself appeared.
What you're suggesting, Jim, is that because you indicated that something about this was going to be in your book, that they then decided to make it public before it became public in your book?
Well, as I said, I don't know why they did it. All I can say is I had all of this information in the book. We were fact-checking this information with the White House, so the White House knew this information was going to be in the book, and shortly after that, the memo appeared. But I'm sure the White House will say that no, that had nothing to do with it.
Let's take another short break. An inside peek at the White House damage control operation when we come back.
We're very fortunate to have such a wonderful family.
After his operation, his body was like twice the normal size. He was on a respirator for 3 weeks. It was kind of lonely around here.
I got Aflac through our company. The owner of the company felt that we should have it. It turned out fabulous.
Aflac covers the unexpected costs of getting better so you can get on with life.
Everything worked out wonderful.
Every morning it happens. Run the kids to school, drop off the cleaning, look for a shortcut to work, end up on a twisting scenic road, and late for work again. Then explain myself to the boss. Wait a minute. I am the boss.
With the refined power of one of the world's 10 best engines and spacious leather interior, Regal by Buick will make taking the long way to work even more rewarding.
What a morning.
Tomorrow, what's new and how will it affect your return in Taxes Made Easy? Plus a preview of Super Tuesday.
That's tomorrow
on Good Morning America.
Channel 2 News is on your side. When Charles and Louise Beebe of Woodland lost everything in the flood, Channel 2 News and viewers like you delivered with money for a bed and refrigerator.
We're so happy to have that gift to us from Channel 2.
I will always remember this, and I will always give.
Channel 2 News is the spirit of the Northwest. It's not just something we say, it's something we do.
There's a place unique in all the world, where the air is perfumed and the sea is crystal clear. Beauty found only in the islands of Hawaii. Call 1-800-367-5500, extension 22, for a free Hawaii travel planner. Or if you're ready to go now, ask your travel agent about the Hawaii Spring Fling. Fly Hawaiian Airlines, stay at the famous Hilton Hawaiian Village, and get $150 in upgrades, discounts, and more. Call your travel agent today.
When I agreed to this motherhood thing, nobody told me I'd be doing everything in triplicate. Around here, nothing's quick or easy, except for my U.S. West Direct Yellow Pages. It's got an index in the back to find the right headings. And when I need something right away, like an ear doctor, it's got these specialty guides. I use my Yellow Pages all the time now. It's quick, it's easy.
Daddy's home!
And it's there when you need it.
It's the one that gets used. U.S. West Direct.
There was, Jim Stewart, considerable debate going on within the White House, you discovered, about how much to reveal, when to reveal it, how cooperative to be. And at one point, there is a line that I suspect is going to be a rather devastating line that the First Lady uttered in reference to all of this.
Well, you're right. There was internal advice, especially from David Gergen, to turn everything over. And this was seriously considered until the First Lady interrupted at one point and said, well, you know, I'm not going to have people poring over our documents. After all, we're the president, suggesting that by virtue of the grandeur and power of the office, that they somehow should not have to endure such an experience.
The key questions, I think, ultimately may become not so much what happened during Whitewater, but what happened in more recent months in terms of either covering things up or not being as forthcoming with information. There is one story that you uncover having to do with the Paula Jones story. This is the young lady who charged sexual harassment against then Governor Clinton, and the Arkansas state troopers who were then guarding Mr. Clinton. What is that all about?
Well, I think it's well known at this point that the troopers surfaced with some accounts of their experiences while in the security detail of the governor. What I think hasn't gotten much attention is that before these reports were published and before the troopers actually made the final decision to reveal what they claimed to know, there was pressure applied to them to try to get them not to speak out. And I think the most significant example of this came when the President of the United States himself called one of these troopers and offered him a federal job. that trooper subsequently decided not to participate. He was not one of the troopers who subsequently did tell stories to anyone. So if the goal of that job offer was to get this trooper to remain silent, it worked.
Is there not one trooper who, in fact, ended up with a federal job?
The head of the governor's security detail did end up with a federal job, but the trooper who heard directly from the president and decided not to participate did not accept it. He said he didn't want one of these jobs. He wanted to stay in Little Rock.
Now, again, let me draw on some of your experience as a lawyer. If indeed that could be proved true, the charge that you that you make in your book, that would be a federal crime, would it not?
Well, that again could be a federal crime. I think the issue here is, was a job offered explicitly in exchange for something else?
Let me ask you, and I realize this may be the most difficult question I ask you of all, after having written a book that is 400 pages plus, how do you reduce it to a conclusion as to culpability, lack of culpability, whether this is a story that has just been blown way out of proportion, whether it is simply being kept alive for partisan reasons now and is doomed to do so for the rest of this year because there is a presidential election and because, you know, for the Clintons, the unfortunate timing that your book is coming out right now. How do you summarize everything you've learned?
Well, my interest is not partisan, and my interest is not narrowly, was a law broken. I think to sum up the whole book, it is a study in the acquisition and wielding of power, and in the end, it's a study of the arrogance of power, what people think they can do and get away with as an elected official, and then how candid and honest they are when questioned about it. I think that is what it reveals, I think, most significantly about the Clintons.
And to those who say, has all of this investigation, the congressional investigations, the independent prosecutors, the time that you have spent in putting this book together, you know, was it all worth all the money and the time and the effort and the pain?
I think in the end we'll find that it was, that the truth is important in our society, that justice is important in our society. I don't think you can put a price tag on those things. Yes, it's terribly expensive, and at times it seems very wasteful, and at times it's nasty and it's partisan. It often is a blood sport, as Vince Foster said. But why is that? It's because the truth was never honored in the first place. And I hope that there's any lesson that comes out of that, that people in the future will recognize that.
Jim Stewart, thank you. I'll be back in a moment.
Some people are doing more business than ever on Fridays.
The Denver deal doable, Donnie?
Good. Help your business do more business with Sprint's amazing offer. For 1 full year, Fridays are free.
No, I'll call you back. It's Friday.
Every long-distance call you make on Fridays is free. The rest of the week, you get Sprint's great low-flat rate.
Okay, so I'll call you next Friday.
Call now. 1-800-598-5000 for free Fridays at work. Only from Sprint Business.
First, Goodyear revolutionized wet traction design with AquaTread. Now, Goodyear introduces the only tire with a lifetime tread life warranty, the new all-season Infinitread. Its tread is guaranteed for as long as you own your car. Call 1-800-GOODYEAR.
G'day, mate. Thanks for the invite.
Hope you're hungry.
What's for lunch?
Muchísimas gracias por habernos invitado, señor Hakim. Es un placer estar aquí. Hakim. Whoa. I say us to this year's Olympic Games. Me, Hakim Olajuwon, and the rest of American Dream Team are going to treat these guys for lunch.
Hakim, we said we're going to eat these guys for lunch, not treat. Whoops. Hakim.
When you need a world of purchase power, it's time to go for the gold. Visa Gold, it's everywhere you want to be.
Did you know that 99 out of 100 people will watch Portland television this week? That's almost everyone. Television. It reaches people.
Channel 2 News is on your side. When Charles and Louise Beebe of Woodland lost everything in the flood, Channel 2 News and viewers like you delivered with money for a bed and refrigerator.
We're so happy to have that gift to us from Channel 2.
I will always remember this, and I will always give.
Channel 2 News is the spirit of the Northwest. It's not just something we say, it's something we do.
Did you know that 90...
They're still back there.
Don't worry, love. You're riding in the world's first sport utility wagon.
I am.
That's right. This here's the all-wheel drive Subaru Outback.
That's great, but...
You know, it's got more cargo space than a passport.
Uh-huh.
The ground clearance of an Explorer.
Yeah, but...
Oh, and did I mention, it gets much better gas mileage than a Jeep Cherokee.
Outback, you say?
Subaru Outback. The world's first sport utility wagon.
We're talking with a real homegrown success story. You're the spokes onion for the sweet Spanish onions grown in Eastern Oregon. You supply 25% of all the onions sold in the U.S. Mm-hmm. Because of the lottery? You bet. Lottery dollars went to OSU for research on onions like me and other veggies. Research? Increasing our yield, disease resistance, better storage. So as onions go, you're... bigger, stronger, more in demand. Sort of brings tears to your eyes. Happens all the time.
Years from now, your kids won't remember that extra hour you spent at work trying to impress the boss. They won't remember the countless nights in front of the television. They won't remember the weekends they had to mow the lawn. And you hope they don't remember the evenings you had to leave them home with the babysitter. But chances are good indeed, they will remember the day you took them skiing at Timberline. Isn't it time you took your family to Timberline?